Welcome, all my Facebook friends, to a talk on men and masculinity in the year 2020. I'm Paul Sterling. I'm the author of Argue Less, Love More. And let me know if you want to join me. I'll be watching the comments and be open to having other people definitely dive in and talk about their experience of men and masculinity, both the feminine and the masculine. So what is it that creates our masculine side and the men? And I want to dive into that. I also want to let you know what this event is. So every night at 6 o'clock West Coast time, every morning at 9 a.m., we have a talk. It's from Compassionate Talk. Hello there from Michigan. Hello, Lana. Anyway, this talk is about how to create compassion, connection, understanding, empathy with the people in your life at a time of chaos and challenge and upset, and with everything that's going on the planet right now. What we want to do is we want to create a sacred space to bring us together. And I'm sort of the madman of relationships. So this is the inner workings of my mind. Like, this is your ROS. I'm not going to get into it too much tonight. That's your relationship operating system. And that's made up of your habits, patterns, and beliefs. And over here is the dance floor for conflict. And if you want to learn all about conflict, what happens, I will dive into that at some other time. And I see people going, I'm masculine sometimes, not always, and I'm definitely feminine sometimes and not always. So what I want to do is talk about some differences between men and women, but also some very strong differences between when I'm in my masculine side and when I'm in my feminine side. And what are the men, the mentors, the moments that make up our lives and our meaning, and how much of what we consider masculine or feminine is nurture and how much is nature, how much depends on the environment that we grow up in. And I'm going to give you a little bit about what the environment that I grew up in, and you might look at for yourself. And hi, Sue from New Zealand. It's 1 p.m. Friday in New Zealand. Well, welcome to Facebook Live. I love it that people are tuning in from all around the world. So I was starting to say how this call came together. A dear friend of mine, Scott Thomas, who runs, and I'll pop his banner up here now. He runs something called Love Coach Academy. And he teaches love coaches around the world. In fact, some of the love coaches he's taught are on the call. I've been through his courses. One of the things that Scott is absolutely masterful in is teaching people how to communicate from their heart and get out of their head. And if you look behind me, you can tell I spend a little bit of time in my head. I'm analyzing things. And we all have our safe space. So 3 places we communicate: from our head, our heart, or our hurt. All right, I'm going to dive in a little bit to what are some of the events. And hi, Liz from Oregon. So I love it that I'm talking about men and masculinity, and almost everybody that's commenting is in their feminine is a female. So this is something, here we go, men and masculinity. And what I want to do is look at what are the, back up one. What are the moments and the mentors, and how did we get shaped? And this one right here is one of my shaping experiences. That picture is probably almost 70 years old. That is my mom and my dad in Maine at a boathouse. And I think I was actually even conceived at that boathouse. At least that's the romantic story I've heard. So And they adored each other. But my dad grew up during somewhat of the Depression, and he grew up, and part of what he taught us is the best defense is a strong offense, because he had to protect himself, and vulnerability with him was the enemy. So that's part of the culture I grew up in, and I'll tell you how that impacted me in a second. So those were two major influences, and probably the reason that I am a relationship coach today is because I watched my parents go through such a painful divorce, and it was painful because they still loved each other, but they didn't have the tools or the training or what it took to get along, to stay together. So they ended up getting a divorce after 18 years. Now, this picture here is a little hard to see. That is me on the left and my older brother, Kevin, on the right. And you can see that we're almost the same size there, and he's 2 years older than me. And I actually grew up to be bigger than him, and he hated it. And on a regular basis, he would beat me up, to make sure that I knew my place in the hierarchy of the family. So between my father, who was Irish alcoholic, amazing, like he was a paradox, a totally compassionate human being and a total asshole at times, and very judgmental, and it was hard to be good enough. And so I watched Masculinity with my older brother, who at this point we got along, but when we got in our teens, it was like something got triggered, and he was brutal. It was hard to be around him. And luckily, the year before he committed suicide, he came up to Alaska, and we made friends again. And so it was heartwarming and heartbreaking to lose my brother. And I still, 40-some years later, I miss him, and I can feel still some sadness for what could have been. So my idea of masculinity was watching my brother and my father, and it was dangerous masculinity, because what my father would, like I said, I think already, is the best defense is a strong offense. So if my mother got vulnerable, my dad got angry or brutal. He could not be with my mother when she was in her pain. He took it personally. And a lot of masculine, they're taught that if their partner is in pain, it's either their fault or their responsibility. So part of what I do is help people work through that, so they learn how to be with their partner and when they're in pain. And so moving along my evolution, I decided that I was going to prove that I was tough enough. I was the gentle kid. I would get in fights in school, and even if I beat the other kid up, I would cry because it didn't match who I was. I didn't like it. And then I said, I'm going to get tough. And so at age 17, I left home and became a commercial fisherman in Alaska. And at age 21, we bought that boat right there, the Olympic King, 78 feet. We bought it in Florida, brought it around through the Panama Canal to Alaska, and I spent the next 18 years as a commercial fisherman in Alaska, rough and tumble. And how this all ties into man and masculinity, it's the most masculine thing. Well, it's the most dangerous thing. I won't say it's the most masculine thing, but it's the most dangerous thing you can do outside of active military duty is to be a commercial fisherman. And that was my proving ground. And then it's like, once I proved it to myself and to others, I wanted to change. And so while I was up in Alaska, I ended up bumping into this guy all the way on the right there. His name is Robert Kiyosaki. He is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And what Robert woke me up to is the idea of personal growth, the idea that I could get a mentor and I could change the direction of my life, and that there were tips and tools and techniques and strategies that I didn't have to stay in, I call it your operating system. We have a relationship operating system, and we have a life operating system, and it's made up of your habits, patterns, and beliefs. And I kind of thought that the ones you were born with are the ones you're going to die with. And Robert was the first one to kind of open my eyes up that I could actually change my direction and change my destiny and change the way that I interacted with other people, especially with my partner, with the feminine, because I went from being really a softy, a gentle guy, to getting to be pretty rough and tumble. And I wish I had one of my pictures of me commercial fishing. I got the picture of the boat, but not of I was a little gruff. And it took a while for me to kind of mellow back out again. So this is my next mentor. And what I want you to think about is, what are the moments, and you can type them in both for the feminine and for the masculine here. What have been the moments in your life, the turning points? Who have been your mentors? Who have been the moments that changed it? And so becoming a commercial fisherman in Alaska, it wasn't just a single moment, but that was a turning point in my life. I had to become very independent, very reliable, able to do impossible physical work that, on a regular basis, we'd work 24-hour days, and not lightweight days, but really tough. And it shifted who I am to myself and how I showed up with myself. And then this is a picture of me with a much younger. Can you guess who that guy is in the tank top there? That is one of my mentors and a turning point in my life. When I went and studied with Tony Robbins, that opened up my mind in a whole nother way. And I think that it's really important for men to have rites of passage. And you could almost say becoming a commercial fisherman was a rite of passage for me. And working on Tony Robbins' staff, and then Tony hired me, that was a rite of passage for me. I can think of my life before Tony and after Tony and how different my destiny was. And I realized that a lot of my mentors have been men, but, because of my early upbringing around men, there's still places I don't trust them. My older brother, at age 17, ended up sleeping with my girlfriend on a bet, not on my bet. I would never bet that. So he bet somebody else that he could sleep with my girlfriend, and she had never been with anybody before. And he did. And it broke my heart and ended my relationship. And I really, I've been around men a lot, worked side by side with men, commercial fishing. My life depended upon them. And there's still a place for me that sometimes it's really hard to trust them, and especially trusting with being vulnerable. So part of what I'm talking about is giving, especially the feminine, an insight into men and masculinity and my journey specifically. And then the other side of it is if you can make friends with your masculinity and your femininity, you can make friends with your partner. Because one of the things that my journey is teaching me is going all the way back around to becoming vulnerable again. That I used to think of vulnerability as a weakness because my older brother would and could use it against me. If I set a boundary, he knew that something was precious there and he would attack the boundary. So I was careful about even letting anybody know what was precious and what wasn't. And I learned early on from my dad how to relate when you're in pain is to pull away, to withhold, to punish, not to be vulnerable, not to share what was going on, but and I could hold a grudge for 2 to 3 weeks against my partner, my ex-wife. And so I've come a long way. It's like this is a cathartic, embarrassing revelation. But I'm talking about men and what kind of shapes masculinity or a aspect of masculinity. Not that many people have gone through the Alaskan commercial fisherman, but there's other rites of passage, whether it's the military, the police, some other place where you're tested, and some places where it's tough testing. Like there are a lot of places, if we don't give young men a healthy rite of passage, they'll join a gang and go through rites of passage there because there's a deep desire to belong. And if we don't create a healthy set of belonging, we lose them to others. Let's see. Oh, Sue says one of her changing moment is when her dad collapsed on her when she was 15 and he died an hour later. He was my hero. And no one talked back then. I became brave for 30 years and went into therapy at 73. So Sue, wow, I feel tears, that we don't talk about that. We shut down. There's a lot of repressed feelings. And I was working, one of my things that I did is I created a course and I taught in prison for 8.5 years. I taught nonviolent communication as a volunteer once a month. And I worked with the men's side and the women's side from minimum to maximum security. And I remember one woman who was in there because of drugs, and she told her story. And what she told was that when she was 14 years old, her mom told her to wake her up in an hour. And the little girl forgot to wake her mom up. And when she went to wake up her mom had OD'd. And the 14-year-old blamed herself. She thought she had killed her mom because she didn't wake her up in time. And this was one of the times when she could actually be with that pain and be held and to be understood. And the sisters that were going through this process with her could cry with her and be with her and help her feel it. And men are taught to not feel it because, see, we don't make good robots when we have feelings. We don't want to go to war. We don't want to attack other human beings when we know that they are somebody's father, somebody's son, somebody's brother. So a lot of our institutions try to train our feelings out of us. Don't be a girl, don't be a sissy, don't have feelings. I can remember hearing all of those as a kid. Don't be a girl. And that had such mixed messages in it. One is like being a girl was a bad thing, which it wasn't, but that's the message it carried. And then showing your emotions was a bad thing. So it's like, this is the wake up. And I've worked with clients, men that would literally, this one guy who was in the military, he would rather jump out of an airplane into enemy territory and where people are trying to kill him. He would rather do that than sit and talk with his partner, his lover, about his feelings and needs. And see, we all, well, not all of us, but a lot of people probably on this call speak some other languages, speak English and something else. And so I speak poquito Espanol, a little bit of different things, but I'm not fluent in any other languages, but the language of love is the language of feelings and needs and requests. And it's like we're taught not to speak about our needs. We're taught not to be needy. If you're needy, you won't be wanted. And so it's like, how do I help men especially reconnect to having their needs? Because we have a lot of needs shame. So one of my other mentors, and by the way, if something's resonating with you in this, let me know there. Crazy how we have shunned the sensitivity in men. My 28-year-old son is highly emotionally aware. It's, yeah, thank you. And my partner's son is very awake, very woke. He's 24 years old, an amazing young man, and I think that that's what's going to give us faith for the future and hope for the future, is to have the next generation of woke men and women. Because a lot of women are taught you should be more like a man to succeed as a man. And for a lot of men, it's not even working for us. The workplace, where we're cut off from our feelings and needs, we see each other as competition. So the next person that was a wake-up call for me, or a mentor of mine, excuse me, was one of Tony Robbins' teachers, a guy named Richard Bandler. And Richard, I call him the Hell's Angel of modern psychology. And I learned a lot about hypnosis, a lot of good things from Richard, and a lot of things that I didn't like about masculinity. And I think there were a lot of other mentors. I have almost always had mentors in my life. And I guess I've been lucky in that way, because somehow early on I woke up to that fact that if you want to be good at anything, get yourself a mentor. And this man, I'm touched. I look at his picture. Marshall is no longer with us. He passed away. Marshall Rosenberg was the creator of nonviolent communication. And when I went and spent, at one point I spent about a month in Sweden studying with Marshall. And if you haven't studied nonviolent communication, you can still look up online Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. If you go to YouTube or something, there's plenty there. I read his book, and that's why I wrote this book. So my book and Marshall's kind of go hand in hand. Marshall's book is Nonviolent Communication, is sort of what to do. And then I wrote the book, I know it sounds odd, but what not to do. And if you want a free copy of my book at the end of this call, I'll put the link up right now so you can, even if you don't stay till the end of the call. Nope. Let's see. No, that's not it. That's not it. I may not even have it here. Ask. Oh, if you go there, I'll have to put it up. I'll have to create it. All right. Here we go. www. You can tell this is well scripted. lovemore.net/clarity. Okay. Argue less, love more .net/clarity. And I love doing this live because I'm dyslexic, ADD, and I normally spell words in several different ways. So if you want a free copy of my book, Argue Less, Love More, if you go to Amazon, it's $19.97 plus shipping. And the reason I wrote it is because of this man, Marshall Rosenberg. And I went and spent about a month with him in Sweden at one point, and went through, there was 2 10-day sessions that I went through. And I intentionally went to Sweden because I wanted English to be the second language. I wanted to get way out of my comfort zone because I wanted to change my habits, patterns, and beliefs when it came to communication. And so when I went to Sweden, what I can say is that for me, it's like I started falling in love with myself. I fell in love with my feelings because I had thought my feelings and needs made me weak. And if I wanted to be strong like my older brother, and this is how weird beliefs are. My older brother, at about 26 years old, killed himself. But he was a race car driver. He was a martial artist. The women loved him. He had charisma. And I looked at him as like, that's the man I want to be. And he didn't even want to be that man. So it was when I spent time with Marshall that I started falling in love with me and my heart and my ability to be empathetic and to be connected. So that totally transformed it. And now, and by the way, not all of my teachers were men by any way, shape, or form, but I just wanted to put in one of the other turning points. So Robert Kiyosaki, well, becoming a commercial fisherman was a turning point. Meeting Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, turning point. Working for Tony Robbins and having Tony as my boss. And at one point I was introducing him on stage. You know, I'd be the guy that went out before Tony. I just did that for a little while on his support staff, and that was a great joy to me. And then Marshall Thurber, who was Robert Kiyosaki's teacher, was he studied with Buckminster Fuller and Dr. Deming, and Marshall Thurber was another one of my mentors and a moment in my life and a turning point. And he created a course called Money and You, and Money and You is still out there. And if you ever get a chance, go through that course, because it's really about you and the principles of Buckminster Fuller. And then Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication, another turning point for me as a man to change the way I looked at men and what was strong and what was powerful and what made a man, and how to go from being ashamed of my needs. So there's 3 levels. Like when you go to pass a national park and there's a fire warning sign. So there's red, yellow, green. Red is very dangerous. Don't light a match. Don't light a fire. Yellow, be very cautious. Green, it's okay. Everything's wet. So when it comes to needs, we are a culture that has, I call it need shame, and understanding this helps you understand masculinity and femininity, because women have been taught to be ashamed of their needs too. So need shame, that's where when somebody thinks about their needs, they feel broken, that there's something wrong with me. I would be okay if I just didn't have needs. And that I went through 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements. And in one of those engagements, I definitely lived a lot in need shame. I had a higher sex drive than she did. And rather than her being able to be with it, and it doesn't mean having sex whenever I wanted it, but it was like having compassion and understanding for what that's like, she made me wrong for having it. And I felt like I was broken. There was something wrong with me. And if only I didn't have those needs, I could have a great relationship. So there was a lot of need shame that I worked through. So the next level up, and you can think about it, where are you with your needs? And there are 10 core needs that I talk about in the couples course. If you get these 10 core needs met, you will have a remarkable relationship. And let's see, how much time do I have left? I might even be able to go through them on this call. But we start with need shame, then needs embarrassment. That's where I'm embarrassed to make a request around my needs. But if you don't meet my needs without me having to ask, you don't love me, and I will punish you for not meeting my needs. So that is needs embarrassment. And then the 3rd level is when you embrace your needs. Your needs go from feeling like a burden to feeling precious. And if you want to have a remarkable relationship, you need remarkable relationship skills. And one of the most important relationship skills is being able to notice, name, and negotiate your needs. To be able to look at what are your top 3 or 4 needs, and what is your partner's top 3 or 4 needs. Be able to like go out of your way to help meet their needs and have them meet your needs. And I'll give you a silly example of something I did today. My partner Leah is a gardener. She's got a green thumb. I have whatever is the opposite of a green thumb. And she loves up on our plants, on our gardens, on a regular basis. She'll take me outside and show me everything she's done. And the hose broke the other day, and she was watering with like, it was funky. It was through the leak. It was all that. And today I put on my face mask and gloves and went into Ace Hardware and bought her like one of the best, most expensive hoses. Now, she didn't need a hose. She needed to feel loved and supported, and she needed to feel like a priority. And when you make your partner's needs matter, they feel like they matter. If you ignore your partner's needs, it feels like you're ignoring your partner. So if you want an amazing relationship, make friends with their needs, make their needs precious, make your needs precious. And what feelings are your guide thing. Like on my little cell phone right here, it has a GPS and it guides me toward, I put in my destination, and then my GPS will guide me there. Well, here's the deal. I'm trying to get a need met, and my feelings are what guide me. If I'm not connected to my feelings, I'm turned off my GPS. If I'm feeling better or more excited or more interested, I'm getting closer to getting a need met. And if I'm feeling sad or disappointed, I'm getting further away from getting my needs met. So it is critical to be connected to your feelings and your needs. That's what's going to give you what you want in life. It's your guide to help you move in that direction. So let me see what we got for the next slide here. Mentors, what are the people, places, the things that shaped you? Because if you look at it, Alaska as a place shaped me. The independence, the people up there, the things I had to do, they were mentors in my growing and developing. The moments, there was, I can remember one of the first moments of walking on fire with Tony Robbins, walking across burning hot coals. That was a moment. I can remember the first day we launched our 32-foot commercial fishing boat that we had built by hand, July 4th in, I think it was 1974, in the Homer Harbor, Homer, Alaska. It was an amazing event to build your own fishing boat, and the stories and the meaning that I made and the decisions. And see, the thing is, it's important for us to understand the decisions. And well, the decisions we make a lot of times are based on the meaning of events. And I was with somebody one time the afternoon after they'd found out that his lover had cheated on him, and she had gotten drunk and slept with someone else, and she was heartbroken. And she knew that she screwed up royally and was apologizing. And he said, I can't take her back. I can't be with a woman who would do that to me. And I understood, but it's like the meaning he made up was the more important thing. And the meaning he made up is, I will never trust another woman again. I will never be vulnerable again. And see, the thing is, in relationships, you're going to get your heart broken. It doesn't mean that someone will always cheat on you or something, but you're going to get your feelings hurt and your heart broken. And the question is, what are the decisions you're going to make? What are the beliefs you're going to create? And you can look right down there. Men are, and just fill in the blank. Men are, and I could say, men are not to be trusted with your woman. Men are, assholes. Men are amazing. Men are heroes. men will do anything for the people they love. So it's an interesting mixed set of beliefs. Women are, life is. The important thing is to start uncovering your beliefs, because your beliefs drive your actions drive your results. And you're wanting to find out, do your beliefs support you? And I know you probably can't read this. Or do they sabotage you? Maybe I can just bring that up so you can see. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of things that are running and often, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of things that are impacting and influencing your relationship. There's one thing that's running it. It's called your ROS, and it's made up of your habits, patterns, and beliefs. And whoops, I did that wrong. Habits, patterns, and beliefs. There we go. I had it backwards. But it's important to know what they are if you want to change your relationship. If you want to change the way that you relate to your partner, it's really important to know what these are. All right. So I'm going to tell you a tiny bit about this couple, Melody and Ian, and they have been engaged for years, and they work together, they live together, they were engaged. They are, as you can tell, an amazing, handsome, and gorgeous couple. And this was in Arizona at their wedding weekend, and it was sort of like almost a mini Burning Man weekend. And we worked together for about, I think it was 3 or 4 months, maybe a little longer, and something shifted. They had the tools where they could connect with each other, and they went from being engaged to just going forward and getting married. And this was at their celebration, and what they did is, as a wedding gift, is they gave out my book to everybody there. It was really cool. And this is Marianne Williamson, and I've got a copy of her book. She's got a copy of my book, and it was really cool. So, and I'm a high school dropout. So to me, to writing this book really meant something to me. And I wanted to, like I said, gift that to you. And what I hope you do, if you get it, is that you actually print it out, read it, do the exercises, practice it with your roommates, with your partner, with your kids, with your parents, because this is a critical thing. Like this is the New York City subway, and I was back there last spring. Well, not last spring, the spring before, with my partner, and I am not a city guy. So the city is, and the subways is overwhelming. There is 840 miles of track, 472 stations, serving 27 subway lines. And so how do you find your way around when you are someone who spent more time in Alaska on a boat navigating in the ocean than you did underground in the subway? What do you need to find your way around? Well, what you need is a map. You need a map, you need a mentor, you need a way of finding your way around. So hold on one second. I am going to find, because I said I was going to do this. Yes. I'm going to talk a tiny bit about needs. And if you've got any questions, definitely enter them in there. And Elizabeth, one of the things, and you say, and to fill everybody's needs first, it's like, I want to be careful of when you say that. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, because one of the things that's critical is it's like, if I'm a narcissist, and I hate even to use these labels because they get bantered about so wrongly. But if we do the classic narcissist, the narcissist is someone who basically feels like my needs are the only needs that matter. And I don't care whether you get your needs met or not. The martyr On the other side, the codependent is your needs matter and I give up on my needs. And the courageous dance that I teach and that I want to live is like, my needs are not more important than my partner's, and my needs are not less important than my partner's. And I want to do a dance and figure out how do we get both sets of needs met. Yes, we are taught not. Oh, yes, definitely. And women, Elizabeth said that that part of what women are taught, and this is hopefully changing, is that they're supposed to meet everybody else's needs first. And there are a lot of women that are right now in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and maybe even in their 40s, but they were taught, meet your husband's needs first, your partner's needs first, meet your kids' needs first, go to church, do whatever it is. And like someday, then it will be your turn. Like it's not your turn now, it's your turn to meet everybody else's needs, but then someday it will be your turn. Now, men got a similar thing, although that's changed a lot. It's like work for 30 or 40 years in the same company, and then one day you'll get a watch and you'll get to retire. And it's like, but before then, don't have needs and just work your ass off. So that was the old martyr syndrome. And men are still taught not how to have needs, and women are still have that conditioned in. Don't be needy. It's, oh God, it's how repulsive is that? I'm saying be needy, make friends with your needs, enjoy your needs. And here are top 10 needs. Now, these are my combination when Marshall Rosenberg from Nonviolent Communication meets Tony Robbins. Here's what you get. My interpretation of mixing and matching the two. And I'm going to say something that will probably be not politically correct, but there is only one reason, and I think I got this mainly from Tony Robbins, but I totally embrace it. I'll own it. One reason to be in a relationship, and that is to get your needs met. And when you stop getting your needs met, you can really still love the person, but the relationship is starting to die. And there's a lot of relationships that died years ago, but they've not been buried. They might have died 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but they haven't been buried. Sorry. So the idea here is I have never had anybody come to me and go, Paul, my partner is meeting my needs, my top 3 or 4 needs at levels 8, 9, 10. And I want to break up. No, when your partner is meeting your needs, even at 5, 6s, and 7s, you've got a really good relationship. So here we go. Need number 1. And Tony Robbins has 6 core needs that he talks about. Like if you go on YouTube and put up Tony Robbins, his TED Talk, he talks about the 6 core needs. If you look at Marshall Rosenberg, he's probably got over 100 needs. This is your training wheels. For a relationship, if you get these 10 needs met, you will have an incredibly powerful foundation. Number 1 is certainty and trust. Can you count on each other's words? Can you listen? Can you trust them? Do they have your back? The next one is uncertainty and variety. So it's like if I cook the same meal and it was a really good meal, but I cooked it the same week after week after week, pretty soon my partner may go, what's the deal with the way you do the scrambled eggs? I mean, I liked it day 1, loved it day 1, liked it, day 4, and now I need some variety. So you need to build in certainty and variety. That's role playing, whatever it is that you need to do it, something to build in variety, especially now when we're locked at home and we can't go out to a restaurant or whatever. What can you do to build variety into the relationship? The next one is significance and priority. And it's like, if you think about it, Like, just think about somebody goes, yeah, no, I'm listening to, I hear you. No, no. How significant do you feel? How important do you feel right now? So it's like, how do you let your partner know that they're a priority for you? How do you let your kids know that they're significant? How do you take and focus on somebody and give them your time and attention to let them know that they are a priority? The next one, so that's number 4. And this is not put in a specific order. What you need to do to learn about yourself is figure out what is most important to you. It's like a combination lock. So what makes you unique is which one of these is most important to you right now, and what strategies do you need to implement them. So if you want to unlock your partner's love and intimacy and connection, figure this out. Find out what are their top 3, maybe 4 needs, and what are strategies that will help them feel significant. Help them, like for me, getting a garden hose for my partner. I think that helped her feel loved and connected and felt significant. The next one, love and connection. That's pretty, well, it can be straightforward. How do you let them know that they feel loved and connected? Now, part of what we work with is couples that are locked up together and there's too much connection, and other ones are having long distance relationships right now and they're not having enough connection. Number 5 is about growth. And you, as you're going through this, you can go, oh, I'd love to see, what do you consider number 1, 2, and 3 for you? So growth, it's like, growth is in my top 3. And part of the reason for the divorce from my first wife, who's, we're still friends. We're still good friends. We talk periodically. She just sent me a box of great pictures from when we were together and from me growing up. And the thing was, growth was a much higher priority for me than it was for her. So going to Hawaii, she would want to sit on the beach. I'd want to go to a workshop with Tony Robbins and go walk on fires or jump off of a telephone pole onto the trapeze or do something that was stretching, growing. And Tony calls these 2 the needs of the spirit: growth and contribution. And how do you contribute? And if you think about contribution as also a high value for me, why? I've been doing these calls for the last 3 months. They're no charge. I do tell you how you can get more if you want to. If you want to work with me or you want to work with a love coach, I let you know how to do that. But this is our chance to contribute. And your partner loves to contribute too. I'm guessing almost everybody likes to contribute somewhere. What does your partner like to do that makes a difference in the world? One of the things I do, and I wish I had it up here right now, but there's an orphanage in Africa that I contribute to periodically, and it really touches me. And, to know that I make a difference. And, I first, when I heard of an orphanage in Africa that wanted money, I was skeptical and cynical. But then I said, what if it's real and they need my contribution and I need to contribute to meet my needs? And so I did a Facebook Live, or not a live, a Zoom with the guy who runs it. And he walked me through the whole thing and introduced me to the kids, and they called me Uncle Paul. And it was like, oh my God, it touched me. And the truth is, I want to do more. I could do more. And if you're touched by that concept, send me a personal message and I will get you the foundation's information and introduce you to Mosh, who runs the whole thing. And so that's contribution, but find out where you want to contribute. And another way of contributing was a lot of these people went out and did a march and protested, and Black Lives Matter, and standing together with people of color, of different races, and contributing and saying, I got your back. You matter to me. Your needs matter to me. Being a stand. So be a stand in your relationship. Be a stand with your partner. Anyway, moving along. 3 different forms of intimacy: emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, sexual intimacy. All 3 of those are beautiful needs in a relationship. And attraction is another need. It's one of the needs that brings us into a relationship, and it's important to keep it alive, you know. So you can look and go, which of these needs is most important to you? Which is the second most important? I would love to see some there. You could just type it in. If you are unconscious of your needs, no way to measure the health of the relationships. Yes. Elizabeth, I'm loving your comments, and it's like I think you have been on the path of personal growth and development. And I want to just say, this is a story of this couple that I worked with, and I want to give you an idea of what's possible when you work on your relationship and you change your relationship with masculinity and femininity. And Jesse and July they're from Vermont, and they took an hour and a half or 2-hour workshop with me. And then they wanted to do the 3-month. There's a 3-month program where like we do a deep dive and really get clear what's going on in your relationship and where do you want to go and what needs to happen. We give you the tools and the training to get there. And Jesse was an interesting guy because he was in and then he was out. He was in, let's do it. And then it's like the old patterns and habits and beliefs kicked in. And it's like, no, I don't want to do it. And yes, I do want to do it because he could see here's the outcomes that he wanted. Wanted more connection, more intimacy, more communication. And then he would get scared and pull back. And it took about 3 months of yes, no. And finally he said, I'm in. He jumped off the deep end and chose in. And oh God, months later, after we'd done our work together, I called them up and checked in to see how they were doing. And I thought it was just going to be like a quick check-in call. And they started listing off all of the changes that had happened in their relationship. And so I just wanted to cover some of what's possible when you make friends with the feminine, when you make friends with the masculine, when you allow the hero to come out and you can consciously, I think the best way to describe it is one of my mentors, a woman named Allison Armstrong. And by the way, if you love Allison, I am going to be interviewing her on this call, but it's going to be June 24th. So Allison to me is a total rock star. And she loves men and helps women understand men. And she also helps men understand women. But one of the things she talked about was frog farming. And I added something to that. I call it frog farming and bitch building. So frog farming is where the feminine finds herself a prince and then demasculates him, not intentionally, but out of old habits and patterns of belief, but demasculates the man into being a frog, to take him from a prince into a frog. And what men do, or the masculine can do to the feminine, is bitch building. They take somebody who they find and adore and they love, and they withhold or they objectify or they do whatever it is, and the feminine goes from feeling empowered to like having to nag and bitch at their partner to get anything done, to be heard. So they were in a really tough spot when we started, and here's what changed. July got in touch with her feminine power and went from feeling like she had no power, or he had all the power and the final say, to understanding that he wanted to be her hero and to make her happy. And she learned how to ask for things in a way, not as a manipulation, but that empowered him and brought out his desire to be her hero. That she could use "can you hear me now" communication method or process to enter his world so that he felt really heard, understood, and valued. That gave her more patience, confidence, and compassion in her connection with her lover. She was also able to discover her 10 core needs beneath almost all of her upsets. What was going on? And what was going on was a need of hers wasn't getting met, and she didn't know how to articulate it. And she learned how to do that. And she got clear on the power of her words. And I'm going to, tell you just a tiny bit more of hers and a tiny bit of his. And the reason I'm saying this is like so that you get an idea of, wow, if they could do that, what could we do? So the other thing that she was able to identify her limiting beliefs and start letting go. How to let go of limiting beliefs and create empowering beliefs and understand what a belief really is. She stopped taking his masculinity personally and started to understand the difference between the sexes. She also understood that when he was single focused and in the hunter mode, and both men and women can get in the hunter mode, single focus versus omnifocus. The feminine tends to be wired better at multitasking and have more omnipresent, but it's not just men or women. So the masculine side is the hunter mode, single focus. The feminine side is multiple focus. All right. So she was able to understand when he was single focused and in the hunter mode and stop trying to get his attention when it wasn't available. And it didn't end up hurting her feelings or his feelings. Here's what he got out of it. And it's important that you understand what's possible in the relationship between the feminine and the masculine. And this is also available in gay relationships, lesbian relationships. It's these polarities of energy, whether we're calling it feminine, masculine, whether we're calling it hunter-gatherer, single focus, omnifocus. But what he got was he stopped taking himself so seriously, started having more fun. He got to understand the differences between men and women in a way that was empowering for both of them. He got to see sex as a great indicator of how connected they were, sort of the canary in the coal mine, telling them whether the relationship was in good shape or not. For him, he loved that he was able to enter her world so that she felt heard, understood, and valued. And that, by the way, is the key. Both of them were able to do that. That is one of the 7 essential relationship skills, to learn how to listen to your partner so they feel heard, understood, and valued. He also loved that he was really able to, I just read that one. He stopped worrying about what he said and became very interested in what she heard, which was a huge breakthrough. And he loved that they both became aware of the impact of using any language that implies bad, stupid, wrong. The whole thing about communication is so critical. I said earlier in this call that for 8.5 years, I was a volunteer in prison working with minimum to maximum security inmates. I remember one day at the end of the second day of training with a group of maximum security inmates, they were leaving the room and they're in their gray suits, and we really connected because I don't judge them. I don't know why they're there. I don't ask them. My only job is to give them new tools. And this guy was leaving and I watched him kind of go by me, and then he stopped And I could feel, you're on sort of a little bit high alert inside of a prison. And he stopped and he started backing up, and I could feel myself get like a little tense, a little nervous. I'm wondering, what did he want? And he backed up to me and he looked me in the eye and he said, Paul, if I had learned these tools in high school or in school, I wouldn't have spent 20 years in prison. If I had learned these skills in school, I wouldn't have spent 20 years in prison. And I remember that. And it's like, we need to teach men different communication skills, because we're taught through Hollywood, through schools, through peer pressure. We're taught about masculinity is about tough, and it's about power over people. It's about pushing people around. And it's none of those things. Masculinity, it depends on your definition of it, but it's how do we as masculine, how do we in this powerful position create a safe space on this planet for the feminine? How do we create a safe space for our kids? How do we, as leaders, create a safe space on the planet? So the last thing there is, he said he learned the power of speaking in chunks and not overwhelming his partner, and chunking down information so it was more absorbable. Chunking for the masculine and chunking for the feminine, that we absorb information sometimes very differently. And it's really important, if you want to have great communication, to know how to chunk your communication. He said he also stopped taking him personally when his partner asked him to slow down and use smaller chunks. And that's so critical. If you're going to speak, like when I go to Mexico or some Spanish-speaking place, I try to speak their language. And one of the first things I've learned is to say, despacio, por favor, poquito español. It's like, I only speak a little bit of Spanish. Speak slowly, please. And if you're speaking about important things and emotional things, you need to speak slowly. You need to take your time in little chunks. So he became a lot more patient and supportive of his partner. And so this is what we are a stand for in this whole process. And I want to just make sure that I give you, this is where you can get the book, Argue Less, lovemore.net/clarity. And if you go to Love Coach Academy, you can find out more about becoming a love coach, if that's the path that you want to be, someone who transforms other people's lives, or you just want to take your skill level to a whole new level. Scott is an amazing teacher, and it's really good to go to his courses and to my courses, because we are a great combination. He is going to give you the skill of empathy and understanding, and I am going to give you these 7 core skills that I talk about, whether it's compassionate communication, getting your needs met, healing wounds and taming triggers, dealing with conflict resolution, building trust, intimacy, dealing with differences. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time and energy. I would love you to share this with anybody you think might get a lot out of it. And also, anything you get from it, please type that in. I go through and reread it. I know that there was some comments I didn't get to read. Thank you for your time and energy, and we hope to see you somewhere out there in the world. Be compassionate, stay connected, communicate from an open heart, and realize that it's hurt people that hurt people. And we rarely heal the pain by doing more damage. And I know it's tempting right now when somebody lashes out at you or challenges your beliefs to want to lash back. And I find myself occasionally seduced into doing that, but that rarely has somebody look inside and go, oh my God, you have a point there. So thank you for your time and energy. I look forward to seeing you somewhere out there in the world. Have a great day. Ciao.